Welcome back to the Fans of the Home Team podcast.
I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Miranda. This is a podcast that talks about the fun, the drama, and the effects that sports, teams, and athletes bring to the world, whether good or bad.
This is a podcast for people who care about sports in a deeper way than who won or who lost. It's for the people who love the feel-good stories behind teams and athletes and realize that sports are more than a game.
So fantasy football is over. Even though I have my Christmas tree still up, just ignore this thing in the corner over here. But fantasy football is over, which is sad since we all both participate pretty heavily in fantasy football. We have our own league and then we have other leagues as well. So we always have fun, and I definitely think it's the best way to keep track in the NFL and the smartest marketing decision they've ever made in their entire life.
Facts. It consumes me on a weekly basis. But we're going to talk about some of the players we've had on our teams, whether they overperformed, underperformed, et cetera, et cetera. We both have a top three, a bottom three, some honorable mentions. But first, Miranda, let's talk about how you finished in some of your fantasy leagues.
So I literally just, when I was looking through all of my teams and players, found out that I lost to you in our league and got second place because I was so consumed in my family's league. It was insane. But so in the league that Kelsey and I are in, I got second place. So I'm pretty sure that's how it ended last year too.
Probably. We're clearly the elite two of this group.
I think it's always like me and you, and then Janelle's always in it as well. I felt so bad when I was looking because I was like, I had an 8-6 record and she had a better record than me.
Yeah, I always feel bad because this is the only league she's in because I have like 3 other ones too. Yeah. But this is like her league, and we're always beating her down.
I know. So yeah, got second, Kelsey got first, but we both went to the championship. It's crazy because I'm in 3 leagues, same as Kelsey. My family league is like the big one. It's not even for money, it's literally just for bragging rights. But we've been in it. It's called Pop's Legacy. We've been in it for like for so long now. And I was number 1 in the league, got first place, best record, which I've never done before, and didn't even fucking make it to the championship because of some of the people on this list. I feel like I had a really good team, and I just kind of, did my own thing in fantasy this year where usually I stress so much about it, and I feel like it paid off. But I got 3rd place, which is just lame. I honestly would have taken 4th place. That way I would have gotten a better draft. But whatever, I was a little upset about that. And then in the league that originally was my work league, but now most of us don't even work together, and it's a dynasty league. It's on the Sleeper app, which I've never played before, but we've been in it for 3 years. It is intense AF, but I made it to the championship in that one, but I got second place again. It's fine. I got $75. Super cool. I feel like I had a pretty solid fantasy run. I really would have loved to have won my family league because I've never won it, but there's always next year.
That's tough. Maybe next year. I'm rooting for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So I have 4 leagues, the one that we're in, and then 3 other ones. I made the playoffs in all 4. I won ours, and I won the other ESPN league that I'm in with some friends. So 2 leagues out of 4, not bad. And then the other league I was in was an auction draft on Yahoo, which is very different than a traditional snake draft that you do. So basically you got $200 and you're bidding on players. So you can go as high up as you want on players as long as you have the money. But if you're doing auction drafts, don't do that.
Yeah.
Just don't get anybody for like 30 picks and let everybody else waste their money. And then you can get people for cheap. That's what I did. I started off that season like 7-1 and finished 8-6. Lost to the first round of the playoffs because of some people on this list here. So that was disappointing. And then I'm also in a dynasty league with some of our classmates. We are on the Flea Flicker app, but we're moving to Sleeper. Very intense. I think I've been in it for about 4 years now. It makes me sick because my team pisses me off so bad. I barely made the playoffs. I have a really bad running back situation where David Montgomery and Damon Pierce and James Conner are my 3 running backs. It's going horribly, so I don't know how to fix it. It's not going well, so we'll see what happens. But
Yeah, the
So
dynasty things are rough. The sleeper one, I'm like, "I'm not doing this next year. I'm not doing this next year." And then I always just end up doing it. And after this year where I made it to the championship, I don't even know how truly. I do know it was Jalen Hurts. It's hard because when you need to pick up players, you're fucked. There's nobody.
there's no one. You're picking up third stringers.
Yeah, who are gonna get 1 point if that. Super sick.
On ours has individual defensive players, so we're playing 4 defensive players at a time as well. We got a 30-man roster. It's crazy. I have Trevor Lawrence, Devontae Adams, CeeDee Lamb, and Travis Kelsey, but my running backs are so ass. I'm just bad. I fucked up because the first year we did it was 2018, and I had never done a dynasty league before, so I wasn't thinking when I was drafting. Because my first pick was fucking Ezekiel Elliott. I'm pretty sure that's the reason my shit sucks. So I ended up trading him 2 years later for a pick because I can't deal with this loser anymore.
The app is very confusing as well. I'm sure some of these people are annoyed with me because they propose trades all the time, and I just don't like.
You're an idiot.
Mostly because I didn't do a couple trades this year, but mostly because I don't like them and I just like don't want to decline. I don't know why. It's stupid.
So you leave people on red, you don't even decline. I declined
Yeah,
so fast. I think that's stupid.
The reason I definitely lost in the championship is because Jalen Hurts wasn't playing and I had to play Minshew. Because on my bench, actually on my IR, I have Matthew Stafford and I used to have Matt Ryan, but then I just got rid of him.
Obviously.
Oh no, he's still there. It's chaotic. Very chaotic energy.
Next year.
Next year, I want to win my family's league. That's all I care about. That's literally the only one that stresses me out. So I'm hoping I got first this year. So hopefully next year I can actually get first and win the championship.
I'll pray for you.
Thanks. People think we're crazy that we care. Like, I care so much about a game.
It's for bragging rights. You have to care.
It really is. Only in one of the leagues I'm in is actual money involved.
Yeah.
Like, everything else is just...
Money's not as important as bragging rights.
No, never. Especially when it comes to your family.
Exactly. Nothing's better than being able to tell somebody that they suck and you're better than them. Wow. That's a good life lesson.
That's the real reason we're in fantasy football.
The one that I won, not ours. The loser has to watch every episode of Riverdale, which I've never seen, but it sounds terrible. And he has to take
awful.
He has to write an essay on every season and take a quiz on it every season.
Oh my gosh. That poor soul. The first
Don't
season's
suck.
good. After that goes downhill real quickly.
Don't suck.
Anything to any excuse for a vacation. I think it was on TikTok or Reels, and all the guys go to a tropical destination, and then that's where they do their draft, like a live draft. And then they do a whole celebration celebrating the winner and then also bragging on the loser, and the loser has to do their punishment there. That's the kind of fantasy football league I'm trying to be in.
That's what we need to be doing.
We should, honestly.
All right, we'll set it up.
I always wanted to do a live draft.
Maybe next year if we have money.
Maybe we could do a live fans of the home team all draft.
Since we'll have cameras, that's a good idea.
Yeah, better quality, and you can actually see our faces.
Let's go bottom 3. Who do you got first? Who pissed you off?
Who pissed me off first? Okay, so this is a complicated pick, but the real reason he pissed me off is because he really fucked me over in the playoffs. But other than that, the rest of the season, he was pretty solid. But it's Aaron Jones. The sole reason I'm putting him in my bottom, but he screwed me up so bad in the first round of the playoffs. He was my only hope to make a comeback or even get anything, and I think he scored 5 points, which he hadn't done all season. It was one of his worst performances of the entire season.
It was his worst.
Yeah. So that is why he is in my bottom 3. Yeah, 5.4 points. I was so angry, and I was still a little hopeful. And then, yeah, no, he absolutely ate shit. Which, so did Josh Jacobs as well. But he gets excused.
Yeah, that they won that game too. And for him to only get 6 carries was disgusting.
You know what? At the end of the day, I blame Aaron Rodgers.
I think that's fair. Aaron Rodgers was
for all of my problems. And
he's talking so much shit all season. Like the TikTok the Lions made after they beat them was the best TikTok of the season.
That was fantastic. I almost posted it to my stories just because I was crying laughing when you sent me that. And I'm not even a Lions fan, but that was hilarious.
I sincerely hope he retires.
I think so. I mean, I think he almost has to now because he was an asshole and didn't give his jersey away. And now obvious, or he did it on purpose because he wants all the fame and like rumors swirling and blah 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 blah, only to be like, I'm still staying in the NFL or some stupid bullshit. I'm so over him. I'm done. I'm done.
I don't know what he would stay for, to be honest. Like, where are they going? They're in the worst spot, maybe, in their division. Like, the Lions are actually going to be good next year.
Yeah, for sure.
The Vikings, I don't know about that. I don't want to talk about the fucking Minnesota Vikings. And the Bears have 100+ in cap space in the first pick that they could trade back. So the Packers are in a bad spot. And I love it because fuck them.
Aaron Jones, I think it might actually be Aaron Rodgers. Because, like I said, the rest of the season, he's ended up number 8 ranked running back. And the rest of the season, he was solid throughout. There were a few lower games, but for the most part, he really came through when I needed him. And yeah, that one really fucked me over. And that's why I didn't make it to the championship. So, Aaron Jones, you're on my shit list for now.
Yeah, he's a really good receiving back, which is great for PPR leagues. But the last 3 games this season, he had 3 or less. So, and he was out-touched by A.J. Dillon.
Yeah, I think that it's just interesting because, like, obviously we've been doing this for so long, and Aaron Jones has always been such a household name, and I feel like in the past couple seasons, he's starting to go down and just...
It's a running back thing.
Yeah, the young guns are coming in. You know what I was thinking about today? What happened to Todd Gurley? Like, where is that man?
He filtered himself out like every other old-ass running back. Todd Gurley was like a number 1 pick, 5-6 years ago? But that's where Christian McCaffrey will be in 5 to 6 years, most likely.
Probably. It's just crazy how quickly it moves. And I remember that year where he came out and he was a number 1 pick. And my cousin Marie picked him before I did. And I was right there. I was heartbroken. I was so excited to pick Todd Gurley, like, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, now he's just not around. It's weird.
Yeah. It's just the life cycle of elite running backs that get so many touches. It just doesn't last for that long.
It just makes me feel old.
It does, because they retire younger than us. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
First up on my shit list is Cam Akers, Rams running back. He was drafted around the 3rd to 5th rounds this year. Garbage. Literal garbage. I don't remember when I drafted him. He was not on my team for very long because I got so pissed. But he was like the 35th best running back. So, worse than pretty much every other D1. And he was below 10 points every single week until week 13, which is not what you want out of a high round draft pick. I think he did win people some championships because by the last few weeks, he was good. But at that point, for me,
apparently.
It was much too late. You can't make it 10 weeks and not get above double digits and stay on a fantasy football team. So, good waiver wire pickup, terrible draft pick.
Yeah, I think that Cam Akers is such an interesting player because, again, go Knowles, but he has not been living up to the expectations that I think was set for him.
The expectations of the Rams this season was just gross. So, I don't know what happened there. It's very strange to see a Super Bowl winning team that doesn't change much just be ass. I know Matt Stafford got hurt, but he wasn't hurt for the first few weeks, and they were terrible.
And also, love Matt Stafford, but he doesn't make a whole team.
No, the Cooper Kupp thing going down obviously hurts them a lot, but if one player going down hurts you that bad, you're not a good team.
If you don't have the depth to continue to be successful and to continue to be a Super Bowl contender, there's something else.
Right. It was gross. If you had an LA Ram this season, RIP.
I know a lot of people were upset when Cooper Kupp got hurt. You would have thought it was their own funeral.
That dude gets mad receptions. So to replace it is very hard, especially when you got Allen Robinson. Oh, God. I just remembered Allen Robertson. He's not on my list, but he could be because he pissed me off so bad this
Same.
season.
I was gonna put him in the honorable mentions, but I was like, nah, he doesn't deserve any more because we shit on him plenty during Thanksgiving, and he deserves it because he's terrible.
I will never draft that man again.
No,
I
I
don't care
always
if
get
he's
stuck with him. I will take a bench, like I will take a third string over Allen Robinson. I'm done.
it's just principle at this point. We can't do it.
Yeah, no. Which kind of leads me into my next player because I feel like I've had him the past 2 or 3 seasons, and he is number 2 on my shit list, and it's Deontay Johnson, wide receiver from the Pittsburgh Steelers. This man is not good. Every time I draft him, he's always listed like pretty solid in the wide receiver, and he's one of those picks midway through the draft. You just got to pick him up. So I get him. And the first 3 weeks, he did pretty good. And then to the Jets scores 4 points. And then just continually just falls pretty miserably until they play Carolina in week 15 and gets 20 points. That's the brightest spot. He ended up ranked wide receiver 29, average points 10.6. Like, that's not good enough for me.
I refuse to draft Pittsburgh Steelers at this point. If you watch Pittsburgh Steelers game, it is so slow. It's very methodical. They have no offensive power whatsoever. It's very hard to watch. They end up winning half their games every season with absolutely nothing, which is probably a credit to Mike Tomlin more than anybody.
100%.
But even Najee Harris, who's in a dynasty league, was the number 1 pick a couple years ago. They don't score points. And Deontay Johnson came in as their wide receiver 1. But I think George Pickens, the rookie, is better and leapfrogged him. But Kenny Pickett is not a good quarterback. He's not getting the guys the ball enough. I don't see where Pittsburgh goes from here. It's looking pretty sad, though.
I think it's going to be one of those situations where you had a dynasty quarterback, even though I literally despise Ben Roethlisberger with every fiber of my being. And now they're trying to pick up the pieces and figure out what's next for the team and for the organization. And yeah, they have one of the best coaches in the league, but it's hard to coach when you don't have any foundational elements on the field, and they're struggling.
The problem with the Steelers is that Ben Roethlisberger was literally crawling to the finish line. He couldn't throw for 4 years, and it was obviously it's ending, and they refused to do anything about it. They refused to take a pick on a quarterback and build them up underneath him until it was too late, and they ended up with Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, I don't even know who that is.
He played for Pitt. He was a first-round draft pick last year. I don't know. There's definitely better options the last 4 years. And the Steelers are not... They're a team that draft their roster. They're not out there making trades. They're not out there making big free agent deals. So there's quarterbacks that are going to be coming up and have come up in the last 4 years. They won't even think about it.
No. Tom Brady to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Do you sell your soul for a Lamar Jackson? You could if you...
Baltimore to Pittsburgh, that'd be crazy.
That would be crazy, but I feel like Pittsburgh has the cap room for him. Like, who are they spending money on?
Yeah, I just feel like they were such one of the top teams for a long time. And in the past, obviously, few seasons, they've just fallen so much. And like you said, I think they just went into it so underprepared and so reactionary. Like, you knew your star player, quarterback, was going to retire. Why didn't you prepare at all?
I mean, he's 100 years old. Not that he's older than anybody else, but he didn't take care of his body. He was low-key just gross, and he couldn't throw by the end. It was obvious where it was headed. I feel like everyone saw this coming. And
again, he came up with the Eli Mannings, Phillip Rivers, like all of those guys who were slowly starting to retire. It's going to happen. He's not a Tom Brady.
The plan was to obviously do what they did with Ben Roethlisberger and draft somebody at the point where they definitely needed them and hoped it worked out. But with Ben, it worked out very quickly. And it's just not that way with Kenny Pickett or whoever the fuck people are drafting in the first round nowadays. It's usually not happening for a lot of teams.
No. I'm shocked that Giants drafted Daniel fucking Jones and we won any game in the playoffs. So
this is going to get a fat contract and then shit himself. I guarantee it. Guarantee it.
Probably. I just know the Giants will mess this up in one way or another.
He screams Kirk Cousins, gets a fat check and then just
Oh,
is
they kinda
average
look
for
alike
forever.
too.
Low key.
Like, just
Ew,
a
I
white
can't.
Midwestern.
I can't. I don't want to talk about Kirk Cousins anymore. I hate him. Next on my shit list is Gabe Davis. There's always guys that end up on pool teams of yours. You think it's going to be good, and it's a shit show. And Gabe Davis is the most high risk, high reward wide receiver out there. There's weeks he will score 30 points. There's weeks he will score 3 points. I started him every week he scored 3 points. He was benched every week he scored 30. I could not time it correctly once. So I'm mad at him right now. I need him to be consistent. And I really couldn't figure out when he was going to pop off. So he burned me a lot this year.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things about fantasy football is those players that aren't consistent. And you try to figure out the balance and then you can just never get it right. Again, some people don't understand, but it's heart-wrenching. When you see your bench, you're like, oh, I'm benching this guy. He only scored me 5 points last week. And then this week he's on your bench, scores you 30 points.
And you lose by less than 30, you're sick.
Literally sick for 24 to 48 hours. Nobody speaks to me.
That's exactly who Gabe Davis was for me. I had him in 3 leagues. I'm pretty sure 3, and it was bad.
That's the other hard thing. I enjoy being in multiple leagues, but it's hard because, like you said, sometimes you end up with players who are on all 3 teams, and you're just like, I don't even want this guy on one team, and now I have to deal with him on every single one. And the other hard part about it is, like, in one league, you'll have a player, say the Bills-Bengals are playing each other. So you have Josh Allen in one league, and you're going against Joe Burrow, but in your other league, you have Joe Burrow. So you're like, what the fuck? I want this one to do good, but I also have to root for this one. It's very complicated. It's a complicated science.
Complicated, toxic, hard. It can be terrible, but we love it. So
yeah, it makes it entertaining. And like you said, I think that it just makes me pay attention to the rest of the NFL and not just the New York Giants.
Oh, definitely.
My last, but certainly not least person on my bottom 3 is Robert Woods. Why the fuck is this man playing anymore? I don't know if he's ever had a good season because I've had him on my fantasy team. Sometimes there's just players that you end up with. You just have to take them and you're just
every year. Yeah.
Yes. And this is one of them. I always end up with it. Same with Allen Robinson, but I'm done. I'm done with both of these men. I'm over them. Same with a Mike Williams. Like, I always end up with, there's nothing you can do about it because you need it to fill the spot or you need it for backup, whatever. Robert Woods, I don't know when this man has ever had a good season, but ended up ranked 60th wide receiver this season. Average points 6.81.
The problem with this, okay, AJ Brown leaves, so the wide receiver 1 spot is wide open. And this is what you do with it. When you have a running back like Derrick Henry and teams are selling out to stop Derrick Henry, someone should be eating. A wide receiver should be feasting off that. And they're not because scam Ryan Tannehill is their quarterback. Another man who scams teams.
Yes.
He does. He's good. He gets fat contracts and then he shits himself. That's exactly what Ryan Tannehill does. He's been doing it for years. And Robert Woods is unfortunately on the receiving end. That's a good pun. Wide receiver. Get it, huh? Receiving end of this. And yeah, he was terrible. His best game, 13 points. No. 14.9, 5 receptions for 39 yards and a tutty. He had 2 touchdowns this year.
Yes. And his worst game, he scored 0 points. He was on the field. He just scored 0 points against Kansas City. 2 targets, 0 receptions, 0 points.
You would think if your wide receiver 1 was this bad, your team would be like 3-13. They almost made the playoffs.
Yeah. And it's because of Derrick Henry, which we already talked about in our Thanksgiving episode. But that man carries this team.
He does, but he's 2 years out from being irrelevant and the Titans win 0 games because he doesn't share carries with anybody.
They're not preparing whatsoever. They're just going with the flow. Meanwhile, you have a quarterback who is not good. And then you have a wide receiver who literally had a 0-point game. Some of these games, 2.6 points, 1.6 points, 3.2 points, 0 points, 2.3 points. Like, you're bad.
Again, as the wide receiver 1, he's not wide receiver 5. He's their number 1 wide receiver.
No depth whatsoever. The depth chart, non-existent.
Robert Woods, no one.
Literally, the Tennessee Titans. And I actually like the Titans. I like Tennessee. I've been to a Titans game in Nashville. Great atmosphere, but your team needs to get their shit together. And the first task at hand is getting Robert Woods off the team or putting him on the bench.
It's time to rebuild Tennessee.
Yes.
I think from the ground up. Well, that's a different story. Not my problem, not my team. So whatever you want to do. My last shit list. This is going to sound super weird, but it's Justin Herbert. He ranked the 11th best quarterback on ESPN. But I think everybody had higher expectations for Justin Herbert at this point. He was below 20 points in 13 of his games. That's ass. That's not good. 9 games with 0 or 1 passing touchdowns. Ass. I know Mike Williams, I know Keenan Allen were hurt at some points, but you still have Austin Eckler there. You're still a top 5 quarterback that was drafted. He's very talented. He can run. I don't know. I feel like he underperformed extremely this year, and he was on that auction team where I took a shit in the second half of the season. So I attribute it to him mostly because he was terrible. He could not figure out how to throw to anybody else. And Austin Eckler can catch 10 passes a game.
I was going to say, I feel like Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, it's not like they're the most standout wide receivers either. Like, you're not missing too much.
Yeah, and even when they were both there, it really didn't make the situation any better. They were an average team at best.
I think the expectation with a lot of the younger quarterbacks is like, okay, this is the time to get rolling. And he just is not performing in tune with the rest of them.
I think his over-under for passing touchdowns this year that Vegas put on him was like 35.5, and he had 25. That's bad.
Yeah.
It was about the same for Tom Brady, too, who played like shit.
Tom Brady, get the fuck off my TV screen.
That's actually my honorable mention. This didn't affect me at all. I did not have any Tampa Bay Bucks players. I had Leonard Fournette, which did piss me off because during the Cowboys game, go Cowboys, fuck Tom Brady. They were like, yeah, they rested Leonard Fournette the entire second half for this playoff game. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Checking out his stupid little stats that they did that. And then he got 5 carries in the game. And I was like, suck it.
Leonard Fournette is one of those players, again, like so uncertain, so all over.
A wild card. Yeah.
Has been like since he entered the NFL. And he was another one that was so hyped up. That had him in one of my leagues too. And I was just like, I can't figure you out, man.
But all of Tampa Bay was a shit show. I mean,
yeah,
Tom Brady, Leonard Fournette, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, they have incredible weapons. And they won a Super Bowl a couple years ago with these weapons. And they could not figure it out this year. And then Tom Brady did some stupid ass TikTok or whatever, the fantasy championship week, because Mike Evans finally had a good game. He had 40 points, but he had sucked the rest of the year. I bet Mike Evans won you some games, and somebody stitched it and was like, if someone had drafted Mike Evans, they were not in the fantasy championship.
No.
So yeah, Tampa Bay offense.
Yeah.
Trash.
The only team in Tampa I don't root for is the Tampa Bay Bucks. I just can't stand them. I think there are true hardcore fans who have been there in the beginning, but ever since they got Tom Brady, the fans are just so fucking annoying. And you can't tell me the only reason you're in the stadium and you have all these sold out games is because you have Tom Brady. I'm looking forward to when he leaves, and I want to see if these fans are still going to show up as hard as they have since Tom Brady was your quarterback.
They don't, because I've sold in Tampa and there's so fair-weathered fans down there. And it's not because they're bad fans. It's because free buddies from somewhere else. Tampa's their second team. But when that second team's bad, they're not there.
No.
And I feel bad when he goes to Las Vegas because the Bucks sales reps are fucked. Like, they're going 3-14 when he leaves because they're bad.
What like frustrates me is just they all live on this high and they're like so braggy and like just so fucking annoying. And I'm like, okay, you've been a Bucks fan for the past 4 years. Please go away. They acted as if this was the worst year of their entire life because it was so up and down. And I'm like, you're not a true fan if you don't understand when the Bucks were actually really shitty season after season after season.
Like, I'm sorry, did you miss 2005 to 2018?
Exactly. Again, there are like true Bucks fan born into it. I'm not talking about those fans. I'm talking about the rest of the stadium, which is probably 50 to 75%, I would say, because I used to go to Bucks games when Tom Brady was not on the field, and those games were not close to being sold out.
Right. It was a culture shock being in Tampa because being from the Midwest, people are not fair weather fans. Like, people are in it, whether you are win 0 games or you win every single game. People are in it. So it was very weird going down there.
I've never was a Tom Brady fan either, so it just gave me another reason to hate the Bucks. And that's what I feel like you see it with even the Lightning and Rays. I think the Lightning is different because they've started to grow such a large fan base and they do so much work in trying to get the younger audience. And they won three, two, three Stanley Cup. How many Stanley Cup are now? Two.
Well, 2 in a row, but they had 04 as well. So
Well, yeah, but I mean, in the last few years, so two, and that helps build a fan base as well. Whereas I just feel like that Super Bowl Bucks was like a fluke.
yeah, when Tom Brady leaves, their fans are gone. That's my prediction. I don't think they've done enough over time to keep them once he's gone.
Yeah, no. Whereas I feel like now, like the Lightning has built like a true fan base. If they went down the shitter, I still think their games would be sold out.
I agree with you. I think there's enough young fans. I think the oldies would be gone, but I think there's enough young fans to keep them sold out.
I've been a fan of my team since I was a kid. I'm never not going to be a fan of them. That's why I get such like shit living in Tampa too and being here most of my life because people are like, "How are you not a Lightning fan?" And I'm like, "They're my number 2 team, but the Rangers are my number 1. The Giants will always be my number 1 football team. I'm never rooting the Bucks. I don't care that they're in Tampa. Like, no, you have to ride or die."
I've been trying to get rid of the Cowboys for a while, but it's so toxic, and now I'm back on full blast. I'm like, we're winning the Super Bowl. So
Yeah.
I'll be disappointed when this episode comes out next week. I guarantee it.
I feel like we understand being Cowboys Giants fans. So, like I've experienced a lot of highs, but like for the past
That's nice.
however 10 plus years, they've just been shitty as fuck, but I still pay attention to them. I still watch and I'm not just going to be like, "Okay, bye. Thanks for those 2 Super Bowls. Let me go root for the Bucks." No.
I'm waiting for a high, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Speaking of highs,
Let's get positive, the top players.
who's your first top player?
So my first top player, so it's a combo deal. And it's mostly because he carried my team for a lot of my family league for a lot of the season, both of them. But it's a Josh Allen and Bills defense. That is my number
Okay.
1, my top 3. I think towards the end of the season, obviously Josh Allen had his struggles and dealing with a slight injury. But for the most of the season, he was my standout player. He carried my team a lot. He was consistent week after week. And the Bills defense, they also crushed it. So I think having the combination, and I think this is the first time too I played where like my quarterback and defense were on the same team. And I really like that method. Josh Allen ended up second quarterback, average point 27.38. And then the Bills defense are 6th defense, average point 11.94.
We love Josh Allen. Like,
We
this is
do.
a Josh Allen friendly podcast.
Josh Allen and Joe Burrow friendly podcast.
I'm so sad. I'm so sad that the Bills and the Bengals are playing this week. Like, I would have rather seen them have to play in the AFC Championship game because we love both the quarterbacks so much, and I would love to see them both win a Super Bowl. So whoever wins that game, we're rooting for you in the
Unless
AFC.
our teams end up playing you guys, but
That's true. I would like to see Jacksonville in the Super Bowl. If so, we'll see. But Josh Allen's going to be the fantasy quarterback for the next considerable amount of years. And that defense did well. I'm not like a defense carrier. I switch them every week just based on matchups. So that's interesting.
I am so the type of fantasy football player where I draft my team and I'm riding or dying with you for most.
Oh, no. I cut people. I trade people.
Dynasty league is different, but in my other 2 leagues, I don't really change my roster that much. I do obviously swap out when the bye weeks start rolling in and stuff like that. But other than that, I usually try to stick with the same core players. Most of my team, I'm pretty sure, are the players that I drafted, which is why I think the draft is so important. Josh Allen, he is my number one. He gets my gold star for my fantasy football this year because he was just perfection. I don't think I can ever not have him now.
Ooh.
I love him as a person. He's so easy to root for. It's hard when you have, for me, a Giants fan, when I have like a Dak Prescott. And like, I want him to do good for my fantasy team, but I don't want him to do good because of the division.
And he didn't. So
No, but I mean, like back in the heyday,
the heyday, he's 29.
literally almost the same age as us.
Literally. Yeah, he had a bad year, but he made up for it the other night, so I'm fine. My number one player is actually, he was not on any of my teams, but Janelle talks about him constantly this season, and it's Josh Jacobs. She absolutely loves this guy, and I feel like she has him every year. He's the third best running back this year, but I didn't realize that. I feel like he goes under the radar, and I feel like Raiders running backs always do. There was a point when I first started playing fantasy in high school, so this is, yuck, forever ago, like over 10 years. Like 15 years ago, yuck. I would have Darren McFadden on every season, and he would be lights out, but he was always under the radar. It's kind of the same thing as Josh Jacobs, but 4 games over 30 points, 12 touchdowns. I truly can't believe they couldn't win with this guy and Devontae Adams. Derek Carr sucks, but I hope he gets out. I hope he goes somewhere where he's used correctly and on a team that wins. So we'll see.
So this is perfect because Josh Jacobs is my second gold star
Ooh.
on my top 3. So I am in with Janelle. I think, like you said, he's very underrated, but he carried my team so much again this season. Having him and Josh Allen on the same team, I'm living for this. All the Joshes really did good for me this year, but he really crushed it. He was a standout player. Average points 19.31. I could not say enough good things about him. And you think, oh, Josh, standout running back, third best fantasy. Oh, he plays for anybody but the Raiders. So I always forget that he's on the Raiders because they're just so fucking irrelevant.
And he probably won't be a first-round pick next year, even with these stats. He will fly under the radar, and someone will pick him up in the second round.
Hopefully me. But yeah, his top game against Seattle, 48.3 points.
I remember that week.
Insane.
Crazy.
Insane. And even some of these other games, though, 36.5, 30.3, 34.5. He was just so consistent. I think he had 5, it doesn't count, but like 5 games that were under 10 points. Like,
yeah,
just crushing it.
And those games where the Raiders got their ass kicked, so they're not running the ball.
Yeah, the last one was against Kansas City, so.
Which is hard to judge a running back on some of these games because sometimes it's out of their control, but there's some that just fucking suck.
I will say they had a pretty easy schedule. He had some good matchups.
Yeah, and they still didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah.
They should have made the playoffs with their schedule, and him and Devontae Adams, they should have made the playoffs, but they didn't.
It's crazy because, again, another player I forget is on the Raiders, Devontae Adams. And he's a standout player. All they'd ever talked about when he was on the Packers was him and Aaron Jones. And now I forget he's even there.
I had Devontae Adams in 3 leagues, and I feel bad for the guy. He made a shitty choice.
Yeah.
And now he's just trapped there unless they get Tom Brady or get somebody, but we'll see.
But I mean, if Aaron Rodgers was my quarterback and captain, I would have been like, peace out.
I know, dude, but we saw like saw a homie named Christian just absolutely feasting, being a wide receiver on the Green Bay Packers. Devontae Adams would have had a great year at Green Bay. And he had a good year in Las Vegas. It just wasn't as consistent as it normally was because he was getting passes from Derek Carr. And I understand why he wanted to play with Derek Carr again. They played together at Fresno, but Derek Carr's not good in the NFL.
No, and I think that if Devontae Adams were on the Packers, they would have made the playoffs.
Absolutely. They would have been way better. I agree. Sticking with the NFC North, yes. My next pick is Justin Fields. Bears, worst team in the league. Number 1 draft pick. Finished 6th. He has no offensive line. His wide receiver 1 and 2 are Chase Claypool and Darnell Mooney, who are 4 and 5 on any other team. They're terrible. I mean, he's got a couple of 40-point games. He has no time to throw. He's basically running for his life and was a great fantasy quarterback. He might have some issues in terms of his being able to actually be a throwing NFL quarterback in this league, but no one can tell until he can sit behind a pocket for more than a second and a half. So I think he will be a really good fantasy quarterback for the next 10 years, especially when they build around him because they have a shit ton of money in cap space. They can go get this guy, whoever he wants to throw to.
Yeah, I really didn't pay attention to the Bears literally at all, so can't speak to him too much. But I feel like this is a good pick, and I think it's interesting. I'm going to keep my eyes out for him now.
I think he'll turn it around. I think if the GM does his job, they could sniff a wild card spot next year, but I think their GM sucks too. So
As most GMs.
the Bears did draft Mitch Trubisky with the number 2 pick in the NFL draft one time and traded up to get him. So it says a lot about the
Traded up to
organization.
get him?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that they
Oh
did
my
that.
God.
Same draft Patrick Mahomes went in too.
Yikes. Major yikes. If I was a Bears fan, I would be punching the air right now.
I think they're cool now. I mean, they're in a decent spot
Yeah.
for being the worst team. So, but yeah, back then, sitting through Mitch Trubisky years, I would have shit myself too. We'll see. The thing that keeps the Vikings and the Packers out of the playoffs from now on.
Yeah, see, definitely the Packers. I don't mind the Vikings as much because I love Dalvin Cook, but
That's fair. The Vikings, if Kirk Cousins is on their team,
why do you hate him so much?
because I think he's a scam artist. I really do.
I mean, I could care less about him, but
I don't know. I
the
just think
passionate hate towards Kirk Cousins.
there's just some people I hate, and for no reason.
Yeah.
I said it all season. They're frauds. They're frauds. And then he gets to the playoffs and he takes up a playoff spot by being a fraud. And I can't excuse someone throwing for 3 yards when it's 4th and 8 and the game's on the line. I'm like, you threw the game. I swear you did it on purpose. I'll die on that hill. You wouldn't do that if you're trying to win the game.
Yeah, that's embarrassing. I do think he is a scam artist as well. I hope that Minnesota gets a different quarterback because that would be a fun team to root for and actually go farther in the playoffs. And they've tried so many times with Kirk Cousins, and you have to see now it's just not working. Things are not clicking. They have so many great players on that team.
You tell me you can't go get a good free agent quarterback with that lineup. You don't need to pay Kirk Cousins $35 million again. You really don't. I promise it's not worth it.
Anyways, moving on from Kirk Cousins. If you haven't caught on, we just hate all the oldies and love all the young guns. That's pretty much where we're at.
They're better to watch.
They are. They're more entertaining. I saw a graphic this morning, and it was all the ages of the quarterbacks in the playoffs. The oldest is 29, Dak Prescott, and the rest.
And he's not even old.
No, not old at all. And I'm just like, and also, when I see stuff like that, I'm like, what am I doing with my life?
Fats.
They're like in their early to mid to late 20s. So 20s. I don't know what I'm saying. And they're going to play in the NFL playoffs to hopefully go to the Super Bowl and win. And we're just chilling at almost 29 years old.
Talking shit about them on our fantasy teams on a podcast.
Who the fuck do we think we are? But the good thing is we love most of them. So it's the old.
True.
Get rid of them.
Yeah, old people hit the road.
My last solid gold star, and we already talked about him, and it's very well deserving. It's Derrick Henry. That man is solid. He just crushes it year after year in fantasy. He is the Tennessee Titans. I feel like it's so hard to be a player carrying a team, and he just does it phenomenally. And he, again, week after week, consistently put up points for my team, and I would have been lost without him. He ended up 4th ranked running back, average 19.05 points. Just crushing it. Over 20, the highest 35.8 points against Houston, which pretty easy, but still, like, he did such a good job. So shout out to Derrick Henry. We love you.
Unfortunately, he's going to waste his career away at Tennessee.
Yeah.
And you hate to see it, but that's just facts of the situation, unless he is lucky enough to get traded like Christian McCaffrey was this year.
I hate seeing players who are such standout players, but they're just on the worst team and a part of some awful organizations who don't give a shit about winning, apparently.
It's going to be sad to see, but it is what it is. Hopefully he's got fantasy relevance in the next couple years. I don't know how much longer it's going to go. He just takes so many carries.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, we'll always remember him in fantasy because I feel like he's been one of those guys that's been pretty consistent. But like you said, he's been pretty consistent for a minute now, so I don't know how much is left in him.
Yeah, me neither. We'll hope for the best, but Ryan Tannehill's his quarterback. So,
Derrick Henry, get out of Tennessee. Run as fast as you can.
speaking of someone who got out of Tennessee, my last gold star is actually a duo. It's the A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith duo for the Eagles. If you have the Eagles, if you had Jalen Hurts and these two guys, you were pretty set. Like I was in our league. So they carried me. AJ, number 6 wide receiver, 14 games in double digits, 11 touchdowns. Devonta Smith, number 9, 7 touchdowns, 12 games in double digits. Was there a better 1-2 punch fantasy-wise in the league? I don't think so. They absolutely crushed it. I'm scared of the Eagles. So
Go Giants!
the game the Cowboys won the shootout against the Eagles was the greatest thing one of the greatest things I've ever seen. It was awesome.
We're recording, what's today?
Wednesday, the 18th.
Wednesday, January 18th. This episode comes out a week from today. Will the Giants and Cowboys still be in the playoff? Not
Probably, definitely not feeling good about playing San Francisco next week.
So, yeah, the Eagles are a scary team. I think, like you said, if you had these guys on your team, you probably won the championship more than likely. I think that it's so hard for me to pick teams or players from teams that I don't like mostly just within our division. Like Cowboys,
Same.
Washington, Philadelphia, I try to avoid for the most part because, again, I want the Giants to win. So it's hard to root for them. Like, fantasy is fantasy. In reality, I don't want. But yeah, the Eagles offense, they just clicked this year. I think that it's going to be hard. This is knowing that the Giants play them this Saturday. But I will be shocked if the Eagles don't take it to the Super Bowl, which in my honorable mentions, I actually have 2 Eagles, one of them being Jalen Hurts. I had him in my dynasty league. And he absolutely crushed it. Again, carried my team until he sat out the last couple of games, which love that for me, including the championship. So that kind of sucked. But he was one of the standout players. And then I always end up with this guy, but this year I feel like was a good one. The tight end, Dallas Goedert. I always end up with him, but he was really good this season. I think I had him in 2 or 3 leagues, and he was great until, again, he got hurt too. So those are 2 of my honorable mentions are also Eagles. I think you could give the entire Eagles offense a gold star.
I mean, yeah, I had Miles Sanders in a league, and he was fairly consistent as well for not being one of the top running backs at all in the league. So I want to hate Jalen Hurts because he's the Eagles quarterback, but I can't hate him the same way I hated Carson Wentz because I hate Carson Wentz. I hate Carson Wentz.
And now he's from Washington, so we can still hate him.
I won't even talk about Washington taking a chance on Carson Wentz. I like Jalen Hurts. I like watching him play. I hope he leaves the Eagles, but I don't think he will. I think he's their guy. So
yeah, I was going to say, if he leaves the Eagles, that organization is dumb as fuck. I think is going to be their franchise quarterback.
He popped off this year. After last year's, people were talking about them drafting another quarterback. It was that close to them moving on from him.
I definitely feel like he proved himself. And like you said, it's hard not to root for him. He's such a good player, so fun to watch, very attractive.
He is hot.
He is the most attractive quarterback. I think he is the most attractive one, if not top 3. So, like, just when he takes his helmet off and smiles, how can you not root for that man? Come on. And he just seems like a stand-up guy. Doesn't seem like a jerk. So, knock on wood, he stays that way. They're going to be a very tough team to beat. But I hate Philadelphia. I hate the entire state of Pennsylvania, so.
I know. It makes me sick, thinking about them being good with Jalen Hurts for 10 years. Yikes. I had one honorable mention. It was Breece Hall. He tore his knee up after about 7 games, but he still finished as running back 42. And if they're missing 60% of the season, which is crazy because that's more than a lot of people got playing the whole season. Over double-digit points every week, a good receiving back. I think that he has to be a top 3-round draft pick next year. He's the guy there. Who else? Giving Michael Carter carries?
Nobody.
No. Breece Hall is the guy. So
Yeah, I think that's a good honorable mention. And I think people really bummed when he got hurt and
I
ended his
was. I
season early.
cried.
So I'm excited to see him, even though I hate the Jets, I'm excited to see him as a player for a full season. My last one, and I don't know how to pronounce his name, but Brandon Ayuk, wide receiver for the 49ers.
That's a good one.
Yes, I
That's a
feel
good
like
one.
he kind of flew under the radar.
Absolutely.
And I didn't pick him up until halfway through the season. That's why he was not in my top 3. But when I picked him up, he came in so clutch and he performed consistently week over week for the most part. And they had a pretty challenging schedule as well. And he did a great job. His lowest game was 3.9 against Seattle, but that's like a hard defense. So he was solid throughout the entire season, ended up 17th wide receiver, average points 3.4. But he came just in time, like I said, when I was in a tough spot, and I really enjoyed having him on team. And sometimes when you pick up a player, you're like, okay, I'm just going to pick him up for this game. I'll probably get rid of him, or like he probably won't even do good. But he remained in my starting lineup for quite a few games. I would swap him in and out. So shout out to him.
I mean, he flies under the radar just because of the quarterback situation that the 49ers are in. McCaffrey coming in, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. Like, yeah, Brandon Ayuk flies under the radar with all that stuff happening. But he's a great wide receiver.
He was awesome. I now will look to him next year, too. He was a player that was not even on my radar. Like I said, just picked him up from free agency, and he was solid throughout the entire season. So massive honorable mention to him.
That's a good one for sure. Let's look ahead to 2023. What are you doing? If you're the very first pick in the 2023 draft, what are you doing?
Very first is different. I ended up in 3rd place. I always go back to my family league. So I ended up in 3rd place. So I'm going to be towards the bottom. I know my family's going to listen to this and try to take him, but like, I want Josh Allen. Like, I'm fully turning into that girly that is taking a quarterback first round. I don't care. I love it.
This is clearly not good fantasy football advice from Miranda. Is it a 10-person league?
No. Yeah, 10.
If it's a 10-person league, I think he takes Stephon Diggs at 7.
Okay, I love him too.
Next year, I think, so if you have the first pick, I think you take Justin Jefferson. I don't think this is a running back thing anymore because most running backs are at a duo right now. If you think about over 50% of the teams in the league, they're running with 2 guys to try and keep these guys healthy. Like a Zeke and Tony Pollard situation is way more common this year than it was just 2 years ago. So I think it's a heavy wide receiver year just because the wide receivers are going to get you more points consistently week after week than drafting a running back. So I think Justin Jefferson should be the number 1 pick in every league. I think the only running back I would consider taking there is Christian McCaffrey. And that's always, the dude gets hurt all the time. But
yeah,
maybe Eckler, but like Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Adams should all go in the first round. And Travis Kelce should go in the first round. That's my opinion. If you take Travis Kelce with the number 1 pick in the draft, you're not going to be disappointed.
Yeah, no, never. He's just a consistent player. And I feel like that's what we're looking for, especially in the first round. And I think that's, again, going back to your point, why it's slowly phasing out the running backs, because the running backs are becoming more and more inconsistent. Whereas all the players you mentioned have a solid quarterback and they will be putting up consistently the amount of points that you want to see from a wide receiver.
Think about if you drafted Jonathan Taylor, number 1 this year. You did not make your fantasy championship if you made your playoff.
No.
So I'm not touching Jonathan Taylor with the 10-foot pole.
No, I haven't even done any thought into fantasy football for next year because I'm like exhausted after this year. It took all my mental, emotional, physical. It was an exhausting year of fantasy football. It was a great year, but it was exhausting. But I think, like you just said, that's some very sound advice for some fantasy football owners for 2023.
Miranda, if I were you, I'd take Stephon with 7 and then Josh Allen with 13.
Let's hope so. But you don't understand my family draft. They don't fucking know how to draft some of them, okay? And they pick people, Marie, this is for you, girl. She does not know how to draft properly, and they just go all over the place. And then one person starts drafting a quarterback, and then everyone freaks the fuck out and starts drafting a quarterback.
That's what happened in our draft too. It pissed me off. I was like, what are these people doing?
Yeah,
Get out of here.
There, for all the people who don't understand, there is a formula to drafting fantasy. And it doesn't start with the quarterback. You don't draft your kicker or your defense till the very end either. But people out here drafting their defense like in the 5th or 6th round. I'm like, what the fuck are we doing?
How are you not winning this league, Miranda?
What?
How are you not winning this league if people are thinking kickers in the 6th round?
Because it's not everybody.
Put me in the league. I'll win year 1. I guarantee it.
Yep.
I guarantee it.
Commissioner, aka my brother Joe.
I think I could get into the league. I'm in the family. I'm in the podcast with you. So family.
Hey Joe, if you're listening, this is a formal request to join the fantasy football league. Again, there are really good, like my dad, my brother, my cousins. Like Jill is a solid player too. She's won, I think, twice maybe. But Marie, Marie is just chaotic energy.
Unshocking whatsoever. So, yeah, that's unshocking. All right.
Yeah, so, okay. Stephon Diggs, I'm coming for you. And then Josh Allen.
Good picks. Marie, sounds like you should take some lessons. So, Jesus.
Still listens to them.
Whoever is drafting defenses in the 5th round should be cut from the league.
I'm being dramatic, but yeah, it's just sometimes very chaotic energy.
Defense second last, kicker last. If you don't do that, you're not serious.
No, I completely agree.
Yikes. Whatever.
We'll see what happens. Solid 2022 fantasy football. Here's to 2023. I'm already excited, even though I haven't thought about it at all, but
then you're not serious about it. But just kidding.
There's always next year. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. We'll be back next week with another sports report, so don't miss it. Check out our link tree, which you can find in the description of this episode. This is our one-stop shop for you to find all of our social media accounts: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, literally everything. YouTube, all of it is on there. And it's also where you can sign up to share your fandom story with us if you want to do that. And so you don't miss any of the upcoming podcasts, subscribe to us on whatever platform you're listening on: Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, Amazon, and more. Thank you again, and we'll see you next week.